Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS current affair analysis for 3rd September 2020, and these are the articles we'll be dealing today. A guide to flattening the curve of economic chaos. This is the article taken from The Hindu, and it is in the context that today we are the global leader in the number of new daily cases of COVID-19. And also, to add salt to the injury, we are also the worst performing major economy during the pandemic so far. So, how did we get here? What are the growth pangs that we're talking about? So, if you take a look at April to June, there is a contraction of nearly 24% of GDP. Now, this is hardly a surprise given the fact that India has stayed under a lockdown from March 22nd till May 31st nearly. It is only from June 1st that economy has opened up in various phases. So even though the article criticizes the economy, personally I would feel this is not a true picture of our economic capability. India also had the distinction of being the country with the largest population to impose a countrywide lockdown. So this is bound to happen. So if the lockdown had a proper effect or not is a different situation, but the situation on March 22nd warranted a lockdown. What did the government do to alleviate the spread of COVID-19 is a different discussion. However, we also have to remember that this 24% contraction of GDP is most likely to be underestimated given the fact that this is coming only from the formalized sector. We are not taking into account the informal sector. So we have seen a lot of migrant labor walking back to their hometowns in a hope to survive this pandemic. So they have been shut down from all sorts of economic activity, and their economic viability is also at an all-time low. So Indian economy is performing very poorly if you take the data from the last 45 years. So physical indicators, for example, IIP or Index of Industrial Production, which covers registered manufacturing, declined by more than 20%. If we take the MSME sector in manufacturing and some of the services, they are still closed or they are functioning at a small fraction of their capacity. Similarly, the wages are also at an all-time low. In this situation, how would you handle this scenario? There is other bad news in the GDP data as well. That is, except in the GDP, except agriculture, all the sectors are performing very horribly. In this present Rabi season, we have had a bumper harvest. Despite this fact, there is every possibility that farmers might not be able to realize increased income because demand is very low. When places like restaurants are shut down, when there is no demand from rural economy, when there is no demand from tourism sector, there is no demand from households for expensive products, what is bound to happen? Demand is definitely going to fall down. So for expensive products, say for example, if you want to produce organic fruits and vegetables, the demand has definitely fallen down even in the upper middle class segments. So this is a serious cause of concern because the most vulnerable group are the farmers. If we take a look at the GDP formula, we have to talk about the various segments. Like I've already said, demand is at an all-time low, that is, consumption is low. Obviously, when there is a total lockdown, trade is at a very small level. Traditionally, trade has rarely contributed for GDP growth in our country. It is a very minute figure. Most of the growth came from consumption and government expenditure. Now with fall in demand, government is also not getting GST. The present GST compensation issue is a part of this larger problem. So there is very little money from the government to spend, and also the states are finding it difficult to manage their resources. Investments are coming, but most of that is leading to market fluctuations as well. So RBI is managing the appreciation and depreciation of the currency to manage inflation. Other than this, there is not much to impact the GDP growth on this front. So overall, the major problem is consumption, either by the general public or by the government itself. For anything to happen, economic activity should resume. Now, in this lockdown, when there is a fear of a possibility of outbreak of second wave of COVID infections, even when the first wave has not started peaking, is a dangerous scenario. So we have certain places like Pune which are bearing the brunt of this COVID virus right now, and Delhi has definitely opened up to a large extent, given the fact that there are zero prevalence results which said that nearly 50% of the public in Delhi now have antibodies for virus. So they have definitely opened up. But what about rural India, where inflation is also causing much more bigger problem, and not just the COVID infection? So food inflation is also rising despite having a bumper harvest because of lack of a continued supply due to lack of logistics. So in this scenario, the only thing that can revive the demand is putting more money into the hands of the people. So the government must definitely consider the situation of the working people who have been impoverished and made weak because of lack of nutrition in this time of pandemic. So appropriate measures should be taken by directly putting money into the hands of the people, considering the extraordinary circumstances that we are facing right now. So that concludes the gist of this article. One error rectified, many to go. This article is taken from the Hindu, and this is in the context of the latest Supreme Court judgment making daughters co-partners in own right by birth, removing the conditions laid down in the previous judgment. That is to say, daughters are equally entitled to the property as a heir from their father, irrespective of their living status. That is the latest Supreme Court judgment. The case that we are talking about is Vinita Sharma versus Rakesh Sharma case. So if we take the Hindu Succession Act of 1956 and the amendment that followed in 2005, there is some difference. So if you take the case of 1956, equal right of succession at par with a son was given to a daughter, but only after the death of father. That is the main issue here. In 2005, the amendment gave the right to property to a daughter in a joint Hindu family during the lifetime of the father. In 2005 itself, there was another case called Prakash versus Pushpavati case. So in this, Supreme Court decided whether the law should be applied prospectively or retrospectively. That is to say, whether this 2005 amendment that made daughters co-partners during the lifetime is applicable from 1956 or from 2005. In this case, Supreme Court ruled that from 9th September 2005, this law will come into application. That is, daughters will be made co-partners if the father is alive, as on 9th September 2005 and afterwards. So the status of a daughter to be subject to her father being alive is apparently a mistake as per the consideration of this author. So the death of an individual should not determine the rights of their heirs. If any right had to be given to the daughter, it should be irrespective of the status of life or death of her father. In the latest case, that is Vinita Sharma versus Rakesh Sharma case, this clause that father should be alive was removed, and retrospectively it was made applicable for everyone, and irrespective of the status of the father, that is his health status or life or death status, daughters are made co-partners by birth. So by the very birth itself they get this right. So amongst the many gendered centered laws which have a patriarchal setup, this is a very important landmark judgment. So please note this and quote this as an example for progressive laws. At the same time, when we are talking about gender equality, we have to consider other social aspects as well, other civil rights. So this is just one of the many civil rights that were considered. That is the gist of this article.